Hi, I'm Ryan Collins, and I am the Director of Technology from Kenton City Schools. And unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to do my presentation at Neotech 2020, but we'll do it today remotely, like everything else being done right now. The presentation is Rock Google Slides, like the boss you are. And throughout this presentation, we're going to look at what is called off-label uses if you're in the medical world. Other ideas that you can use Google Slides for besides just doing them with presentation. If you have any questions afterwards, the presentation is going to be up at the address that's on the screen. Go educate me/neotech2020, or you can shoot me an email at ryan@educate.me, or hit me up on Twitter at educateme. And there's the link for that in case you didn't see it at the bottom of every single slide that's going to be out there. So, first of all, how do we create Google Slides presentations? Well, Google makes it kind of easy. They have several different ways of doing it. Starting out with the most boring, go to Google Drive and click on the plus, which would be over here, and you click on the plus and you can say new Google Slides. That's the boring. We're not doing that. There's also, you can go to just type slides.new into the URL, which is a lot faster. So if I go over here and we'll just open a new tab to make it easier. Slides.new. Boom. I get a Google Slides ready to go. Lousy pop-ups. And the third way, this is more for your students, is you can have your students create it through Google Classroom. And that's when you assign a Google Slide in Google Classroom, and they can either create a presentation in the assignment, or you can assign a Google Slides presentation that you've already put together that you just want them to fill in the missing information. If you assign that and make a copy for each one, then they all have a copy of that. And the final way is doing a slash copy. So if I have a Google Slides here, and here's my original presentation, at the very end, do you see where it says, this one says slash edit, and then it has a slide number? If I change that to slash copy, and not hit several keys that I didn't want to, so it now says slash copy at the end. If I highlight all those and copy that URL, I can give that URL to people, and when they try to go to it, excuse me, it will ask them to, I'm not signed in. Let's get a one they just signed in. So if they go to that, see it says slash copy, it's going to ask them, do you want to make a copy of this? So that's our final way of creating documents. That's a great way to send a help them make a copy of the presentation if you want them to make a copy of the presentation. I'm going to talk about this extension in a little bit, but Sir Links-a-Lot takes care of all these for you. I can do a force copy and see it automatically changes it to copy. I can copy that link to the clipboard. I can also make a bit.ly link of that, or I can just open that up in a new tab if I wanted to. So the preview one's pretty nice. Open that up in a new tab, and there's the preview. And it kind of shows you the presentation, but it's in a tab. But that's previews of coming attractions. Don't get attached to that yet. So now that we can create new slides, what can we do with them? First up, easy clip art with emojis. We always try to punch up our slides and our presentations, and the clip art with emojis, that also pertains to the other apps you might be using like Google Docs. But you're always trying to find a perfect emoji, but you're always under the time crunch because not perfect emoji, perfect clip art. You're always under the time crunch because you need to do the document now. Emoji is a great way to throw in, and I've really started to lean heavily into using emojis just because you can do it so quickly and it adds so much to your document. So in Google Slides, if I want to add a clip art for the emoji, I'm going to add a text box under Insert. There's a special characters. Now these are all the special characters you can do. Da, 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 da. Well, if you go to symbol, you can do emojis. And there are a ton of emojis, and they're all organized for you. So if you're doing, here, nice dartboard, direct hit. Oops. Every time you click, it adds the emojis. Watch. Woohoo! Headphones. Piano keyboard. Yeah, Ryan, those are great, but those are awfully small. Well, that's because you haven't set the size for them yet. There, we got some. You probably wouldn't put 3 in there. But there, we got a nice little bullseye. Let's get rid of these 2. I don't want those. You got a nice little bullseye you can put places. Instead of this alert, we can drag that. I don't want to delete it because I might need it later. Also, when you're working on Google Slides, if there's an entity that you don't want, just drag it off the slide. Because when they look at it, they're not going to see that thing drug off the slide at the bottom. So that's your other tip. That's your bonus tip that's not in the slides. So you can go in and make any of the emojis that you want just by insert special characters, and this works the same way in docs too. So, because you always need a toilet for some reason in your documents, or a baby symbol. Bicycle. The construction sign's kind of cool. One piece of advice with the emojis, it won't affect you much if you use them all in Google documents. The emojis will look the same. But if you try to use an emoji from, say, I'm on Windows right here. If I use the emoji keyboard and look at that one, it might be slightly different than the one that Gmail or Google uses. So keep that in mind. There's really, you get the same point across, it just might look a little different. Graphics editor. As I was just showing here, it's really easy to make different graphics for different services or what you want. And I've got little Facebook and Instagram. Well, let's say we wanted to make a graphic for one of those services. I could have done the layout, but I'm not. By default, it's this widescreen, which you might not want widescreen. If it's Instagram, you want it to be more square. Well, if we go to File and then Page Setup, underneath the Page Setup, I can make it more square. If I do Standard, that's going to be square-ish, but it's not going to be square. But if I do Custom, I can put in here 10 inches by 10 inches. And we're not printing it, so we don't care about the being 10 inches. But 10 by 10, it's nice and square. So now I can make up my little graphic. Oh, and click all over the place. We'll just do a nice blue background and use my emojis in there. Switch just to emojis. Let's put some music notes in there. Oh, it's showing me Unicode. Why is it showing me Unicode? And no, you can't change the color of the emojis, unfortunately. So let's put this at the top. Let's put this at the bottom. And then in the middle, we'd put something in here. Like, oh, is it going to load? There we go. That's just great. So there we go. We've got a nice little graphic here. Now, how can we use this graphic? Well, up under File, there is a download as. Where is it? There it is. Download. And we can download those as a JPEG or a PNG. We'll select PNG. And we need a location for it. Put it on the desktop so I can find it. Everybody saves things to the desktop, don't you? And there's my great graphic I can post. Now see, the emojis changed because different entities will show the emojis differently. But the point still gets across. So that's one way of using it as a graphics editor. I use it a lot. I'll just fire up, when I need to do a quick little graphic, I'll just fire it up and do something. Here is a better sample that when I have more time to do it, this is what it can look like. And when I did this at the eTech conference, I was able to take a picture of somebody at the conference and put her up there. Poor Mary. I took her out because I figured she didn't want to be immortalized with Neotech. But the slide, it looks pretty good. And when I want an idea for a slides for different graphics layout like this, I will go and do a search for Google for some ideas that I'm looking for under images, and then I'll recreate those in Google Slides. Important piece for this is those lines. Let me zoom this out a little bit. Ooh, not that way. Those lines, they go way, you can see the box for the slide. These lines go way outside. All I did was I copied the slide, I copied the line, rotated it where I wanted it to, and duplicated it and drug it randomly in there. And then I duplicated it and changed some of the colors, and they go outside of that little faint line. And then to get this dash and dot line, it's just a box. And underneath the box, this guy right here, you can change how you want the box to look like on the outside. But the bottom of the box, when you go back to the slide, the bottom of the box isn't viewable, so you only see that dashed line across there. So it works out really well on when you're creating something. Don't be afraid to go outside of the box to help you make the graphic you want. Page layout. Page layouts. When I'm on the Mac, I love using Pages because it makes page layout, like graphic organizers or signs, so easy to do. Slides is not as nice as Pages, but it's pretty darn close. So if we look at my page layout, here's my Hill Valley parent night. Let's fit it in there. Drag speaker notes. So when you're doing a page layout, first task is to go to page setup and change it to 8.5 by 11. That'll give me a portrait page that will print out just right on the paper really easily. If I wanted landscape, well, you would do what you'd think it would do and do 11 by 8.5. This parent night was a picture I found, not this one. I found this layout on Google Images and I just recreated it with different clip art that I could find and text. So, and you'll notice my bus, a lot of the stuff goes off the edge. which is a great layout technique to give you an idea of, to make it look pretty good. And then these are just all different circles and lines, and these are clip art. The bus is a clip art. And same way with this graphic organizer. Around the outside is a rounded corner box, which I made the lines dashed. These are rounded corner boxes. This is if you look at the shapes, there's a frame. That's what this guy is right here. He's a frame, and you can adjust the size of the frame with this yellow guy, so I can make it thinner, or I can make it thicker. And then when I make it thicker, it covers my main idea text. And I can also change, if I was going to print this out in color, I could do it. Different colors in the frames. This is just a text box. These are just text box. Well, these two aren't. This is a text box in there. When you draw another box, let me add another. When I drew those boxes, when I double click on there, main idea, it puts it in the middle. But if you look at your texting options, one of these, where is it? I blew things up to make it easier for you to see in the video, so some of the tools disappear. And then I gotta find them again. Oh, it's underneath this one. By default, it centers it in the box. I can shoot it up to the top of the box with that guy. So that's how I was able to, in these, to put those at the top in the same text box. And the directions here are another box, and that's another box. Don't be afraid to make text boxes. Finally, your next bonus is mind mapping. You can make maps and connect them in Google Slides. How does that work? Well, I can have this guy right here. Let me add another box and another box. Oops. Now we could try to draw a line, but if we see how I mouse over, that turns into purple. Well, I can click on that, and I'm holding down my mouse, and there's another purple line over here. When I do purple to purple, it connects those two. So no matter what I do with this, those lines stay connected. Straight line's kind of boring though. We want to do curved. Oops. I think I want to do this curved connector. And look, and then I can do another one down to this other box. Whoops. Now, no matter what I do, those curved connectors stay connected to the boxes. So if you're looking at doing some quick and dirty maps, Google Slides has got you covered. So those are, page layout is pretty nice in Google Slides. I don't do a lot on paper anymore because almost everything is done to be delivered electronically, but I know a lot of people, especially right now, but a lot of people do want to do things on paper, and Google Slides helps you do that. Comics. I really like the comics and making comics in Google Slides. I'm going to show you a different way of doing it than what you might have been seen before. So the first way of making comics, and this is how most of them tell you to do it, you throw a table in here to do the outlines, and then you put your objects in the outlines. These are all done inside Google Slides. The problem with this is You know how all of my graphics I like going outside of the frames? Well, I can't do that when I do it as a table because then it's this ugly thing sticking outside the frame. I can resize it, try to make it fit, but it just doesn't look as good. And the frames are right next to each other because it's a table. I just don't like the look of it. So I'm going to show you creating it in a frame. And look, I can cut them off, but she doesn't show up. And here's that final comic as a frame. I can have different backgrounds for each one. I can add clip art, and I don't have to worry about it dragging over the sides. So how did I do that? Well, first of all, I did not open up the right presentation for that. So when I did this, first of all, I drew out some of the guys. And these are just done with the different shapes underneath the shapes. See, his head is this shape here. His body is the rounded rectangle. And then on top of that, I put the brown boxes for the shoes. So it covered up those rounded rectangles. So that's all these guys are just different shapes that I just drug together and put together. And then to actually use them, I highlight them all and then I group them together. So now it's one person. I can resize it if I want to in the comic. Hold down the shift key when you resize and it saves the proportions. What do I mean by that? If I don't hold down the shift key and I resize him, and you might want it, but you can stretch them out, but I don't like that. But if you hold down the shift key when you resize, they'll stay proportioned. So first I make my little dudes up. We're going to make a new... Oh, I don't need this caption down here. Now I'm going to put him on one of my slides. Maybe he'll go over it. I don't know. Maybe I want him down lower. I don't care if that he's over it. And over here I want some sort of clip art. Do I? Oh, I don't have that in there. So we'll put an emoji in there of something. Oh, let's see. I want a building. School. There, I got a nice school in there. Let's make it bigger. And then we need some dialogue. And there is a call out, which gives you let's go to school. When you're using any of the shapes, the yellow, you can change. There. Oh, this is a great comic. Let's go to school. And then I want the background to be greenish at the bottom. Now look, it's on top of my guys. So if I go to arrange, I can say send it back. Ooh, look at that. No, I'm not a Bob Ross. I can't do this as good as Bob Ross would. And this one we want to be bluish for the sky. Tools. Partially because, oh, look at that. I'm not a Bob Ross because I don't plan enough this ahead to to know what I'm really doing. There's a reason why I wanted that in the frame, and you'll see that in a little bit. It's pretty boring because it doesn't have any cows. Because when we go to school, we always think of cows. Ah. Command and Control Z is your friend. Ah. There we go. We'll just put that cow out there because it's funny. So I have this, but I want to add a frame onto it so it looks better with our comic. If we go over to our demo comic, see how it has this frame? Well, remember I talked about the frame before. I'm going to go a little bit outside of this and draw the box. And then we'll change the frame size. And then we just need to make the thicker border and make it black. This outer border will not show up because it's outside of our frame. And that's hard to see the way this is. Once you have your frame though, if I want to do my next if I want to do my next frame of the comic, I can easily, because I have my frame done now, I can copy it on this one and then just paste it on the next one. And we're done. So now I want to put this into a comic. Well, we're going to use the download as a PNG. And we'll just call this frame 1. I go to my comics. Make a blank one. This comic, all it is another Google Slides document that I changed the page setup. Where I came with 13 by 5, trial and error. I was just trying to figure out which one would give me a nice wide that I could fit 3 frames into. And now I insert that frame that I just created. So it is kind of a, this would be more for students that are older, because they have to do a 3-port they have to do a couple of steps in the process, because they have to do the frames individually, then export them, and then add them to their final presentation. But there we are. And then we could add a caption and we're done. So you know how I just haphazardly threw those up there? If I select them, here's your next little Google Slides trick. Rock it like the boss you are. Under Arrange, Distribute horizontally, and it'll automatically put those, it'll even them out. See how nice they are now? And there, you got a nice graphic, a nice comic. That emoji looks better than it did. And it looks a lot better than trying to do it with this, especially with the backgrounds, because it would be almost impossible to do these kind of backgrounds in this. So that's a quick and easy, I shouldn't say quick and easy, that is a way of doing slides in comics and slides. 10 up with slides that are pretty cool. URL tricks. Talked about this a little bit. Each slide URL is unique. So if I'm in my presentation, if you go to the end here, see how it has this id.g, da, 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 da. It changes with each one. So if I go to the next one, it's an entirely different number. If I share this URL with somebody, they will go directly to this slide instead of the first slide. So if you are going to share the URL with somebody, be sure you're on the slide you want them to start with. Especially if you use Sir Links a lot and want to do the preview. See, it'll go right to the first slide. If I am on that URL slide when I do that Sir Links a lot preview. Oh, and it made a liar out of me. Okay, Sir Links a lot must mess with that because it doesn't do like it should. If I'm on this one and I manually put the preview at the end, oh, because I removed the R. I need to listen to what I'm saying. If I just change the edit and leave the slide the way it is, now it'll go to the URL slide. That will come in handy in a little bit. We'll talk about that. But adding the /preview, it's really nice to be able to give students, if you want them to go through, if you want them to use a Google slide and go through and get information, one we're going to talk about here coming up, the preview works so much better. So we're going to talk about more of these URL tricks in a second here. Interactives. My Star Wars interactive. So my Star Wars guy here I made up, and I'm going to just show you it. We're going to put that on preview and open it up in a new tab. So I would share this link to them, and they would get the Star Wars. Now, anywhere on this page, they can click, and it will not advance the slide. I'm clicking right now. They can still mouse down here and hit this next if they wanted to, so they can still go through it, but it's designed so you can click on each one of the characters here. So we'll click on Princess Leia, and this is just a short interactive. I can't click anywhere else. See, if I'm clicking right now and it doesn't advance, but if I click on the Tatooine, it takes it back to the very beginning slide. So how did I create this interactive? Each object, when you do a Google presentation, slides, each object can have a link to it. I'm going to add a new slide here so I can demonstrate what that looks like. So here we have Luke. Anytime you put a graphic text on a Google slide, you can have it link somewhere else. So if you wanted to give your students a help sheet with links to different websites you want them to go to, you can make that links graphics. So here's Luke, and if I go up to insert link, I can link to a different slide in the presentation. So here Luke's number 4, so I can link him back to 4. I can link him to a website. So students, if they're in edit mode, they can click on the link. But if it is in preview mode, which is where preview mode comes in handy, now if I click on Luke smile in there, it's going to take me to Star Wars. So how do I get it so where they can't click on anywhere on the presentation? Well, what I did, besides closing out the page I didn't want to close out, when you go to this slide, there is a box here. And the box is transparent. The box covers everything on the slide except for these three. So these three, I did the arrange and bring to front. So I brought these three to the front on top of that box. And then the box, whoops. Let me shrink this down so you can see it. The box is a link that goes nowhere. And see, it says invalid link. So that means they can click all they want on that box. It's not going to advance the slide. It's a neat little trick to do the interactive without having to worry about them clicking off of it. It takes some practice to get used to, especially putting it in the layer that you want, but it allows you to make neat little presentations and interactives without that they would like to do. Drag and drop. Along the same lines, you can make a drag and drop presentation, and that's what I have right here. So if I preview this page, and I'm just using presenter view because it's quick. I already, oh, that's not the drag and drop. Need to get this change out of here because I already had the 57 cents over. Oh, it's because I didn't reset it after I did it at eTech conference. So this would not be done in preview. This, you'd hand them the presentation like this without doing the in preview mode. And you could have several different slides on there where you would just change what you want them to drag over. And so they would drag over the correct amount of change for 57 cents. And this would be a Google slide presentation that you would assign in Google Classroom and say make a copy for each student, and then the students can go through and drag the correct amount of change over or whatever activity you wanted to use for that, and then they would turn it in and you'd be able to go through and see if they drug the correct amount of change over for each one. Now, how did I do the background here? Two different ways of doing it. See, I can't change this drag and drop, and I can't change this box. You can go to Master View, and I prefer Master View because I can edit it. So Master View, I took a empty box, and I duplicated it, and here's my duplicated box, and then I set it up how I wanted it. So let's say I put a nice blue background on it, and that my directions, these are my directions, and I can't type today. Let's make that a white so it shows up better. Better font. Bold it and make it bigger. And then for the other one, I had a drag and drop zone, so we'll just stick it here. So on the master slides, and that was view, master slides, I can set all this up, and only on these slides I would put things that I do not want the students to be able to change. When I get back out of master slides, I can go down here to add a new slide. You'll see there's my new slide. It shows up as a layout. And I can't change anything on this layout, but I can add things to it. So it's a neat way of locking objects on a slide because for some reason Google in their infinite wisdom does not offer that with Google Slides. Animations. Who doesn't like animations? Animations, animated GIFs, can be used directly in Google Slides. All I did was copy and paste these animated GIFs directly into Google Slides, and you'll see even when you're editing, the animated GIFs still go. Now, how did I gotta remember how I grab those. Let me see if I can do it quickly. I went to Jiffy to grab those because there are so many copyright violations on Jiffy. I don't know what to do with the rights. So let's say I like this one. No matter what you do over here, it's going to give you a movie file that you can't really use. But let me see if I remember this right. If I replace the word media in that link with yeah, I can copy that image. We'll do this again just to, where's my, oh, that didn't get it. Because look, he's not moving. How did I do that? Oh, I know what. Let's try this. Aha. So how I did that. I went to Jiffy. Hopefully I'll find something that's not inappropriate. So I want to use this dog picture. When I click on it, it gives me this, and no matter what I do over here, I won't be able to use it in Google Slides. But if I go to media, nope, that's not it. Copy link. This GIF link right here, I'm going to copy that, open up a new tab, paste it, but at the very beginning, I'm going to replace the word media with I. And it gives me the animated GIF without all of Jiffy's little fun time stuff. And from there, I can save image as, and that'll give me something I can put into Google Slides. And yes, I call them GIFs because that's what the creator calls them, and it just makes sense to me. If you want to use a hard G on it, then I want you to call giraffes and bring it up with me at the next meeting. So any of the animated GIFs, you can throw them in there, and it's a nice way to add animation to your Google Slides without a lot of fluff. I am running out of time because we're going on 44 minutes. Self-guided lessons. These self-guided lessons, it's a Google slide that's replaced with /preview at the end. And I did this a lot for when I was teaching in my classroom. I was still director of technology. I taught a couple classes, and I was out a lot with director of technology. So they had to learn to do lessons individually online by themselves. So this was an easy way for me to put together content for them in a format that they could view online and it would go through, and I would have movies in there. I would explain how the things happen with more movies and links to other resources so they could go through, and at the end I'd have the assignment in Google Classroom for them to do for each one. So it was a great way of putting together information for them that they could do self-guided and go through and learn. Throwing a YouTube timer up in a slide. This is one of the most popular searches on my website. How to put a YouTube timer. And why would you use a YouTube timer? I used a YouTube timer all the time for my... Let me switch over to that. Entry and exit tickets. So you're going to get a twofer here. Here are my entry and exit tickets I used in my classroom. The form was the exact same every time. Here's the form for them. I didn't collect email address because it would collect it for them. But the form was generic. Question 1, question 2, both of those were multiple choice. Question 3 was short answer. When we present this, so this is the start of the day. They would come in, I would turn on the timer, and they would have 4 minutes to complete these questions as they were getting ready. I didn't always use all 5 options. See, I made this one a true false. But it was I didn't have to, all I had to do was create the slide, and I threw the YouTube timer on there, and the YouTube timer, the timer on that slide is basically insert video from YouTube, type in your minute for timers. So if I wanted a timer, insert video, YouTube, let's say I wanted a 3-minute timer. And there's several 3-minute timers that you could find. Now you might want to play it all the way to the end because the ones with like a bomb might not necessarily be appropriate for you to use at school. Here's another one that's a bomb. So you might not want, or the dynamite. So you might want to look to make sure that the timer counts down and doesn't do anything inappropriate for school. But yeah, select the timer and throw it in there. Now this slide's going to have a 3-minute timer, and you can use it for showing off for entry and exit tickets. And it's really nice. Anytime I had them work as we were going through a lesson in class, I'd throw the YouTube timer up on, I'd throw a timer up on there when they had to do something independently so they knew exactly when it was going to be done. Because, you know, when you get teaching, you kind of forget. You might be helping a student and realize, oh, we should get back to work. It's a great way of keeping up with all of that. My daily notes, let me get out of this. When I was teaching, here's my daily notes. I changed the theme so each day starts with this blue, but then the notes for that day are in green. So this was always shared with the students. They knew exactly what we were covering each day. If a student was absent, they could go back through and see the notes. I usually started off with quick news, and it worked out really well. When a student would have a question, I could say, well, go back and look at this slide, and I could link directly to the slide for them to look at it. Since we had to also turn in our lesson plans, all I did was put a link to this presentation in the folder for lesson plans so they could see exactly what we were doing at any time. Quick, no work. And I just realized I talked over all of that and I wasn't showing the notes. So here's what it looks like. Each one starts with the blue, but so when the students are looking down through it, they know the blue is each day. I don't know why that one's blue, but they knew each blue was the start of a day. So you could easily go down and find the day that they were absent and figure out where they need to go. So on days that I was gone, out today, they would have their directions on what they were supposed to do that day, and it worked really, really well. And I just talked about my entry and exit tickets. Last piece of 2 more pieces of Google Slides. The audience tools is something that is not used nearly enough. You saw me clicking present with presenter view. When you do presenter view, especially after you have 2 screens, picture this window here on a second screen while the audience sees this window. I can have my notes there, which I wing it, so I have no notes. This is great for students that want to read every single word on their slide. You can tell them, don't put every single word on your slide. Put the picture and what you want to talk about, and then you can write out everything you want to say in the speaker notes. When the student presents, they can do presenter view, and they can see their notes and read them if they are not confident on talking in front of the class. That way the class, because no one likes to watch a presentation where the presenter just reads every single word on the slides. So that's the speaker notes. Audience tools, if I turn it on, don't know why it won't let me turn it on, probably because I'm presenting this in several places. I wonder why it won't let me turn it on. I'm going to switch over to my other window here. I have it open up in several different... There it goes. So when you turn that on, it is on now. It adds this address at the top of the screen. Ask a question. If you go to that, so the people in the audience can go there and say, hey, you're talking too much. It can pop up there. Everybody that's in that presentation also sees those questions coming up. And me as the presenter will see them coming up. People can vote on them. And I can also send that over to present. So if I hit this present, it replaces the slide with whatever the person said. So it's a great way to get feedback when you're talking and also throw the question up for everybody. Now, Mr. Collins, that's not a question, so I shouldn't even bring it up. And then I can, with that up, I'll hide it so you can see it. It goes right back. So I can bring that up and back, no problem. So that's what the audience tools are. Very underrated, underused feature of Google Slides. But it's very, very handy. And that's presenting with notes. Casting presentations. This is the final. I think it's the final. Yeah. So casting presentations. If you want your students to present with their slide notes, they can do it right from their Chromebooks in the classroom. Your machine's plugged into the projector, and you have the Google Cast. You have the Google Cast for Education extension added to Chrome. Once that's in there, the students can use present on another screen, and you would have this all set up where when they say present to another screen, your screen would show up as an option for them to present to. You would share it with each one of your classes, and you would say can request. Don't put can present, because then the students will be able to send up at any time and take over your screen. So you don't want that. So if you use the can request, the students can request access to your screen and show it up on the projector without you having to go through all of their shared presentations with them. It just works really, it works, when it works well. Everyone, I would say 90% of the time, no problems. There's always that 10% that's kind of freaky. If you are using this on a Mac, the Mac, when it is plugged into an external screen, so you have two monitors, it will automatically turn on Do Not Disturb mode, which makes sense. You don't want pop-ups showing up, but when a student requests to present, you will never see the request because Do Not Disturb mode's on. So you might want to remember to turn off Do Not Disturb mode if you're on a Mac and you want to use this with your classroom. Do a search on Google Cast for Education. You can find tons of information. Let me know if you want me to do a more in-depth view of it, because I can figure out something here on trying to display it on one screen so you can see exactly what the student sees and what you see. So that's my quick presentation on Rock Google Slides like the boss you are. Let me know if you have any questions, and I hope you have a good day.